Have you ever sung a song and there's just one part in that one song where no matter how hard you try, you just can't seem to get your voice out? And you really want to express yourself dynamically and get that emotion out there, but your voice is just not cooperating. In fact, it feels like the more you sing, the more tight your throat constricts, and then you either lose your voice, you get super tired, and you can't sing anymore. So what's happening here? Well, most likely you are using the wrong muscles, and that's it, right? But simply knowing that you are likely using the wrong muscles is not very helpful. Neither is me telling you to stop using the muscles very helpful either. Because at the end of the day, singing requires effort, but it is a very focused and very specific, intentional type of effort. And if you are not training or working with somebody or practicing intentionally every single day, then it can be very confusing to know which muscles to actually activate. But before we get to that step of knowing which muscles to activate when we are singing, there is one thing we need to do first, and that is to disengage or release the muscles that are not helping you in singing. And that is what this video is about. In this video, I'm going to show you how I get my students to disengage the muscles that they shouldn't be using in singing. And I'll show you why this is the first logical step that you should take before even attempting to try to find the right muscles for singing. My name is Crystal Diaz. I am a voice and visibility coach. I help people to use their voices as an instrument so that they can show up with greater confidence and express themselves more authentically and creatively, whether they want to do that in singing or in speaking. In my program, I teach my students 4 categories of exercises. Each category targets a specific area or component of the vocal instrument, and each of these components, I believe, are necessary for if you want to use your voice in a creative, expressive way. Of course, that relates very much to singing, but it also relates to speaking as well. The first category of exercises is what I call release exercises. And as you guessed it, these are all exercises that are targeted towards helping you to release what I call the unhelpful habits that are keeping your voice stuck. And the reason I have my students practice this first, beyond anything else, is because it's so much easier to start your journey from a clean slate, right? So I believe that if you have a voice, you already are born with the ability to sing. But things happened, right, in your childhood or maybe in the experiences you've had with either speaking in public or singing in public that have caused you to have certain beliefs about your voice or certain perceptions about your voice. Habits can either be helpful or unhelpful. And so if you are watching this video and you know that you are not able to either sing or use your voice in the way that you want to use it, like something is getting in the way, then you know for sure you have some unhelpful habits at play. And so this is why instead of trying to fix all the different things that could be going wrong in your singing, like maybe you are running out of air, or you struggle with hitting pitch, or you have a very narrow range, or you feel like your voice is very muffled. I mean, we could go on and on, right, about the potential challenges that we have as singers. But instead of trying to tackle everything, I found that the best way and the most efficient and most quickest way to achieve success in singing is to target one thing at a time, but the order in which you target those things really does matter. The easiest, quickest way to get started is by releasing all of the habits that are getting in the way to begin with, which is why I always have my students start with release exercises. Whether you are practicing for just 15 minutes or whether you are practicing for 15 hours, I don't encourage that you do that though in one go, always start with release exercises first. Think about it this way. If, for example, you notice that every time you try to hit certain notes, you go off pitch, or maybe you strain to hit them, then the natural instinct would be to assume that you have a pitch problem. Therefore, you should be working on pitch training exercises. But if you are using the wrong muscles while you are doing this exercise and you don't realize you're using the wrong muscles, what do you think is going to happen if you are constantly practicing this pitch training exercise? Maybe your pitch will improve over a period of time, but that's not going to help you to actually stop using those unhelpful muscles. So this is why it makes sense that before we work on anything else, before we work on the pitch, before we work on our rhythm, before we work on breathing exercises, the first thing we want to do is just get rid of those muscles that should not be engaged or should not be relied upon for singing. So now that we understand what release exercises are and why we should be doing them before targeting anything else, how do we do them? What do release exercises look like or sound like? There are many different ways to get the voice to release, but here's a simple one for you that you can try at home. Imagine yourself as a child again, and you are playing on a swing, and you're having so much fun, or maybe you're going down a slide, and you say, "Whee!" That is a release exercise. That's it. Whee! So what I'm doing here is I'm literally allowing the voice to release up and gently find its way back down again. Now, exactly how far up and how far down doesn't really matter, but what does matter is that you feel like the voice is releasing beyond where you speak. I want you to be safe and comfortable when you're doing these exercises as well. So if you're doing this, wee, that is not releasing. You can totally hear and feel how my voice is restricting. Wee! So we don't want to be doing it that way. It's wee! Wee! And encourage yourself to almost feel like you're about to get a little squeaky with it. Wee! Those are release exercises. And you do not have to be loud with this exercise either. You also don't need to use a lot of air. You notice I'm not going taking huge copious amounts of air to create this exercise. Literally, you can just do wee, wee. And what you're essentially doing is getting your body comfortable and acclimatized to releasing the voice higher into this upper part of your range without stress or strain. And so this is why I like to paint that picture of a child having fun, right? You will never hear a child on a swing going, wee. You won't, because they're probably not having fun if they're doing that, right? So really allow yourself to be playful here. Allow yourself to get a little silly. That's actually the best way to learn sometimes, is to do it with a playful mindset. So now if you have a piano, you can actually use that sound, map that sound onto some notes if you want to, like this. Wee, 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 wee. And I don't want you at this point to worry about how perfectly it sounds, because the way that it sounds right now is probably not going to be pleasant to your ears, right? Especially if you are doing these exercises for the first time. And the reason for that is you are not used to going up there, right? You're used to actually restraining and constricting the voice. So you're not used to hearing your voice completely released. And so when we're not used to hearing that sound, we can often think that it's wrong, what we're doing is wrong, and we shouldn't be doing that. But actually, we need to learn to embrace that part of our instrument. And so if you are hearing your voice and you're thinking, oh, this sounds like I'm using my fake voice, or this sounds like it's falsetto voice, right? Wee, 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 I would never sing like that. Don't worry, I'm not asking you to sing like that. Remember, the function of these release exercises is simply to release the throat tension, to release the muscles, disengage the muscles that are not helping you in singing. The function of release exercises is not to make you sound pretty, all right? But eventually you will sound good. This is a first step, all right? So I want you to not think about or worry about how you sound for the time being. Trust the process, okay? Get your voice comfortable with releasing into that upper part of your register, wherever is comfortable for you, as long as it does feel a little bit like you're venturing into foreign territory. And also, you know, you should be doing it without any strain or stress on the voice. So even if it sounds a little bit airy like this, wee, wee, that's okay. Let it be airy for the time being. You do not have to do these exercises for very long to experience the benefits of it. In fact, when I work with my students, I'm only having them do release exercises for maybe the first couple of minutes of our session together. You don't have to spend hours and hours. In fact, you probably shouldn't. You shouldn't be spending hours and hours just going wee, wee, wee all day long, because that's probably not going to help you either. The key takeaway here is that release exercises should be the first part or the first step in your practice session. Because again, you know that the reason for these release exercises is to give you a clean slate, help you release the muscles that you shouldn't be using in singing, get your voice acclimatized and comfortable and feeling safe in that upper part of the voice without strain and stress. And then you're going to be at a much better condition to move further in your practice session. So again, a release exercise sounds like this. Wee, wee, kind of gliding up and down. I like to think of drawing a little circle, right? Wee, and then maybe doing the reverse, going from low to high. Wee, and then starting high to low. Wee, and doing that back and forth a little bit, and then mapping it onto some pitches like this. Wee, 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 or wee, 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 wee. And once I get a feeling that my voice is smooth and is moving up and down my register without strain or stress, again, we're not going to be worrying about how we sound at this point, right? We're not going to be worrying about whether it sounds pretty or not. That's not the focus here. The focus is to release the voice through the registers. So once that happens, then you know you're ready to move on to the next step in your practice. I hope you found this video helpful and insightful, and if you are curious to know what those next steps are after release exercises, then I encourage you to join me inside of my free singing community. I have a free Kickstarter singing course in that community space where you can learn more about how I teach and my methodology. And also you can be part of our private community where we sometimes will run fun group singing events, singing parties, things like that. To join us there, you can go to mysinginglife.com. There is a link in the description box. Or if you want to take that next step and you want to work with me directly or with my coaches, then I encourage you to go to crystaldiaz.com, where you will learn all about the different ways that you and I can work together. And one more thing, if you want to learn how to sing some popular songs with me guiding you line by line, check out the tutorials that I have in this channel. I've taught songs by Adele, Lady Gaga, Olivia Rodrigo, and many others, so do check those out. And if you like this channel, of course, please hit subscribe. And thank you for watching. I will see you next time.